Right, hi folks. I thought I'd do a little random ramblings video. I haven't done one of these in a while, and I've just got some little thoughts and things that have been occupying my brain recently in terms of like the research into the regular and territorial army that defended the UK during the Second World War. And yeah, recently I've been taking a look at what's termed today the C2 and C3 networks. So these are, and I can never bloody remember them. So C2 stands for command and control, and C3 is command, control, and communications. These are both modern terms, which I do think came out in the Second World War, actually. Anyway, these are two key concepts and key organisational features of the military, in particular the army. And these relate directly to, as they state, command and control, or command, control, and communications. This is the way in which all armies are organised and all this type of stuff. It's quite common terminology that's used these days. But me thinking about this today is how important C2 and C3 is to modern military operations and how important it was obviously to the Second World War in terms of defending the UK. So when it comes to the Second World War, everyone obviously in most of the time members of the public and stuff are fully aware of the physical act of fighting, but not necessarily the additional things that go into making sure that troops get to where they need to be to fight, such as logistics and communications between units, how they're coordinated and how they're controlled. And by far the more important thing, especially when it comes to the defence of the UK, where there's one, been very little research, and two, the subject is so mythologized that it barely relates to what actually happened during the Second World War. Case in point being this idea and the public belief that's extremely common that the UK was defended by chucking a load of civilians into an ad hoc uniform, which in a lot of cases comprised of just a brassard, and giving them rifles and a couple and 5 rounds of ammunition, and saying, right, off you go, defend the country. When the reality is much more complex and much different. But by understanding the C2 and C3 networks, this is where we need to. This is where the focus in terms of understanding how the UK was to be defended needs to really be focused on more, a lot more. And obviously, because the Germans never landed and physical conflict, a shooting war never took place. One of the best ways of properly understanding what would have happened is to look at the organisation and things such as C2 and C3. So I finished reading this book on operations, which covers the operational art and military disciplines by B.A. Friedman a couple of weeks back. And I started reading this about 2 or 3 years ago, and then I put it down and forgot about it, and then found it a couple of weeks back and thought, oh, I better read this. And then I really got into it. It's a cracking book. If you're interested in learning about what's termed operational art, so this is things like logistics. What does it cover? I can't remember now. Logistics, communication, supply, even things such as basic administration. So making sure that your troops are properly paid, accommodated, and fed is extremely important. Fire support, operations command and control. This is an absolutely cracking book. I don't think it's particularly easy to find. It's quite expensive, but this gave me an absolutely fantastic introduction to the whole thing of operational art of war. And I think the reason I came about that book was I was trying to get into um, grand strategy and strategic level war games, which are massively complex simulations of ground war, in particular Second World War, for example, which are at such a high level. It's called grand strategy because you are literally commanding units operating across an entire continent, for example. And usually these focus at a minimum level at the division level. And a division is an extremely complex unit. So in terms of like wargaming and stuff, I've been really good at, really comfortable at like kind of section, platoon, all the way up to company and just about battalion level in terms of like tactics. But when you get to your division level, corps level, command level, you're looking at something that's more strategic. So something that took me a long time to understand was this difference between strategic and tactical. And these are two very key terms which are worth being aware of. And I stuck it in some, what was it, LeChat AI thing, just to try and get a really simple overview of what these two terms mean. So strategic is the broad overview. Your strategy is what you are going to do. So if you've got, in terms of the Second World War, in defence of the UK, the strategy was to defend the UK against enemy invasion of all kinds, whether it's from air, land, and sea. And at a tactical level, tactics are the methods that you use pretty much on the ground to implement your strategy. So the tactical side of the defence of the UK in the Second World War was deploying troops to the coast, digging trenches, building pillboxes, setting up a series of nodal points and stop lines and defending those, and also setting about divisional reserves at every single level to undertake counterattack. So, yeah, strategic and tactical level of things is really quite interesting. I've always been more interested in the tactical level of stuff. You know, reading the landscape, seeing which units were operating in an area, and trying to work out how a specific area was to be defended tactically using archaeological remains and stuff like that. So, getting my head around the strategic level it's a massive jump. You know, as far as I'm aware, and if you're not in the military, it can be extremely. It's not very tangible if you don't have a military background. I think people operating in the military are going to have a much better idea of the jump from tactical to strategic. But yeah, reading this book really gave me a good overview of the importance of things like logistics, and it's having completed reading that book, which I originally intended to use as a means of informing my getting into grand strategy games, which I still haven't properly bloody done. I read this book and it just clicked out, set everything off in terms of how this applies to defending the UK in the Second World War, and how important understanding C2, C3, and the strategic level of things is before we even bother trying to understand the tactical level at a local area. So as after reading that, I started thinking about, okay, right, yeah, I've got all these files. I can see how they relate to the strategic and the tactical. So again, from the command files that I've got on the war diaries all the way down to what's the lowest unit, battalion level, where battalion is you're just about bordering on scratching the surface of the tactical level stuff. I thought, right, I need to really get my head around strategy first and then come back to the tactical level of things, because I've got the tactical level pretty much sorted. And it was at that point that I was starting to think about how a division is organised. A corps is quite straightforward, but divisions are extremely complex and all this stuff. And I had a chat with my Facebook mate, Nick, because he's I think he's still serving. I'm not 100% sure, Nick, but I know you've got a vast amount of experience of C2 and C3. And yeah, Nick gave me some really good pointers in terms of, because I was trying to work out, right, how different is modern C2 and C3 to what was going on in the Second World War. And surprisingly, there's actually very little difference in terms of the broad side of things. And Nick pointed me towards the British Army Handbook 939 to 945 by George Forty, which I've highlighted before. And funnily enough, I'd actually put tags in this to look at and never got round to it. And Nick reminded me that this is pretty much the best place to get an idea of higher organisations, army level, arms of service, headquarters, and the staff. So I need to give that a proper read and, make notes and learn. But yeah, my current train of thought is obviously with the invasion threat video that looks at more the strategic level of how the country was to be defended with a bit of tactical level. The what's the other one? The defense levels. The defense series again is looking more at the strategic level, where I want to do little vignettes looking at the tactical. But yeah, it's. I think this is one of the reasons why the defense of the UK is massively overlooked and kind of crapped upon, is that the majority of people don't have this understanding of how important logistics were to setting up the defence of the UK, how important basic communication between units would have been in terms of defending the UK, but also how important this was, although the battle never actually occurred, how important this is to what took place, the deployment of units. So the whole C2 and C3 thing was still implemented by the British Army and the Commonwealth and Free Forces who defended the UK. That didn't go away. So we have this insight into an actual military operation, and although the battle never took place, everything else did. So the logistics networks were set up, the troops were accommodated, they were fed, and all this stuff. And I think this is the key way of getting an insight into how effective the defence of the UK would have been, but again, it's something that's rarely done. This all the mythology of the Home Guard completely craps on this on the professionality of the or the professional nature of the deployment of the British Army in the UK and the Commonwealth and Free Forces. Um, yeah, and the key thing here is how complex these units are, and I think that's this is one of the other barriers in terms of properly understand this stuff. By looking at just the Home Guard, everything is extremely simplified, and you're also looking mainly at the tactical level rather than the strategic level. When everyone just focuses on the Home Guard, you're missing out the more detailed stuff, but the more important stuff. Yeah, and just thinking about that as well. I want to just let's try and demonstrate. God, I can't remember how to do this. Display capture. Let's just, yeah. So one of the ways I want to kind of demonstrate this is through an original document. Turn that one off. Here we go. So this is location statement, location list number 4 from the General Headquarters Home Forces. So literally the top military unit responsible for defending the UK. This was issued on the 11th of September 1940. And just looking at the distribution list, so all the units and people that this would go to, you can see how. Oh, hello. Headquarters Captain Rudolph for headquarters auxiliary units by hand. That's interesting. I hadn't spotted that. But you can see all these different people that this one file would have gone to. And then when we get into the location statement itself, we've got all the individual units, and this is only to corps and division and brigade level. So there were, what was it, 4? I can't remember. Anyway, this just gives you a broad overview of how complex, the defence of the UK was with all these individual units that this one document covers, but only to a set degree. This only goes as far down as the brigade level, but it gives you an idea of this complexity that was going on. And yeah, that's the level that we really need to be focusing on, is working top down. So in the past, like I've said before, I think I've worked bottom up, so working from the ground, trying to go up when I should really, if I'd have known at the time, I should have started at the top and tried to work my way down. And again, because there's very, very little research that's been done into this, very little available information. It is pretty much the last or one of the few deployments during the Second World War of the British Army and the associated Commonwealth and Free Forces that hasn't actually been investigated in any way, shape, or form, which is quite crazy, really, considering how local this defence was to the UK, in that it was the actual defence of the UK. But yeah, I think that this is something that needs more focus. And again, obviously, the key point of this channel is just to try and move people away from the whole mythology, and the whole Duff history side of things, which focuses purely on the Home Guard, which represent a fraction of the units deployed to defend the UK. Yeah, there needs to be a much more professional level appreciation, a lot more research done, because this is such a vast subject. I was also as well like on Facebook earlier, and the amount of stuff that we see that's just like attributed to the Home Guard offhand with no research or any corroboration is quite interesting. Really, it's just like someone sees something and instantly goes, "Oh, that was associated with the Home Guard," with nothing to corroborate that, and it just makes me wonder how extensive that is. Which I'm fairly certain it's pretty much endemic, that people see things and just instantly go Home Guard without actually deciding to check this out. Yeah, and it was, what was it? Some loops in a wall which were apparently had a wire attached to them to decapitate enemy troops moving around on vehicles. But from the images that I saw, it was like at knee height. So yeah, anyway, and yeah, the information was traced back to a local history group. So I can guarantee that that information, someone's just gone, oh yeah, it's Home Guard, and no one's bothered to corroborate it. But that's a key issue and something that, again, I'll keep on highlighting. Anyway, that's me been rambling on for 15 bloody minutes nearly. Still busy with clearing the backlog of my reports, and I'll get back to doing stuff on the channel properly shortly. I'm nearly done with the big pillbox report I'm working on, which is going to be quite a cool one. I've just got to publish something on my website looking at the pillbox drawings published in wills, which are apparently now considered to be original drawings, and I have proven that they aren't, and that'll be going live soon. And I'm sure that'll piss off a lot of people. But yeah, anyway, I shall leave that there. If you've got any questions, dump them in the comment section below. And yeah, have a good one. I'll see you later.